welcome back to Finnegan's Garage. First, I want to say thank you. I am blown away by how many of you are subscribing to this channel and supporting it by buying the apparel that I'm making, like this Zip Tie Life shirt. This is brand new, it just came out, and if you want one of these, go to fsmgarage.com and get one. Now, I'm kind of in a rush. The SEMA show, which is the biggest aftermarket part manufacturing show on the planet in Las Vegas, is about 2 weeks away. And the guys from Holley want the Dragboat in its booth. Problem is, the Dragboat's not done. It's not even close. So I'm going to be pulling a bunch of all-nighters in the next couple weeks to get this thing done for the show. If you're in Vegas, if you work in the industry, or if you found a way to sneak into the show, you'll find this in the Holley booth. Now in this video, we're finally going to finish the headers. I know I've said they're close, they're almost done. Today is the day I finish these things. The last piece of the puzzle is putting on the wastegates. And these are by Precision Turbo. These are what's going to control the amount of boost going into the engine. These mount in line with the exhaust just before the turbo. So I'm going to show you the tips and tricks and techniques I'm going to use to mount these things right now. Okay, so here's our wastegate. These things are pretty cool. It's a stainless steel housing, a billet top. It's got a diaphragm inside that is held down with air pressure. So the more air pressure we put on top here, the harder this holds it down, the more exhaust pressure it's going to take to lift the valve off the seat. Now, if you look in there, you can kind of see the valve. It looks just like a massive valve that you'd see in your cylinder heads. And so this deal gets plumbed here to the exhaust header and vents out here. Now the key to this thing is you want to plumb this in line with the exhaust so it's getting direct exhaust flow in there. If you were to tee it off to the side this way, it doesn't work as well. If the exhaust is flowing this way and you put it this way, it doesn't work at all. So the more in line you can put this, which is called prioritizing the wastegate, the better this thing operates. So what I'm going to do is my header collector comes together right here. Exhaust is flowing this way to the turbo. I'm going to mount this right there and plumb it directly in line. That way I have maximum control over how much boost this engine is seeing. Part of that is, well, I'm scared to drive this thing. And the last thing I want to do is get behind the wheel, hit the gas pedal, and have 30 pounds of boost the very first time I put it on the water. So my goal, first time out on the water, is no boost. Because this engine makes over 1,200 horsepower naturally aspirated. If it accidentally saw 30 pounds of boost the first time out, I'd probably crash the boat. So, yeah. Wastegate priority, saving my life. So here's our wastegate. It's got a V-band clamp on it. This is what we're going to use to mount this to this piece of tube, which we're going to weld here. V-band clamps are cool because they've got a collar inside that you'll weld directly to that tube. After you've done that, you can rotate this around. Basically quick disconnects at this point. It's pretty awesome. The issue here is I need to make that tube fit that tube while matching the angle on the other side of the boat. Now I could spend a whole lot of time measuring from here to here and here to here and here to here and trying to figure out how I need to notch this in order for them to interface together perfectly, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to use this tool, which is by a company called Pipe Master, and it's a profile gauge. All these needles move up and down, and essentially pick your angle and just start pushing it in. And as you do that, and granted it's not perfect, you're going to have to move some of these by hand, but it will give you a good idea of where to start notching your tube at. See? It's not perfect, you got to move a few of them here and there. But now I have a vague idea of where I need to start cutting this tube to fit on this tube. Pipe Master is awesome because you can buy these in an array of sizes. You can get this as small as 1 inch diameter on up to 12 inches in diameter if you're building, well, I don't even know what the hell you build on a car that needs a 12-inch pipe, maybe an exhaust stack on a diesel. For our purposes, you really only need these sizes and maybe a couple more that go on up to like 3.5 inch. 3.5 inch is the biggest tubing I've ever used on a hot rod. So we're going to take this We're going to slide this in here, and then all we're going to do is trace. I'm going to clean up this mark after I'm done, because as I said before, some of these needles, you know, just stuck out the wrong way. But there you go. There's our cut line. I'm going to use the plasma cutter to cut just to the inside of that. Then I'll grind it to fit by hand, slide it on the tube, and it should be ready to weld. Time to notch the tube. And I'm going to do this here on the welding table using a tool that I just got off the shelf and put here because it's very portable. This is the Miller Spectrum 375 Extreme Plasma Cutter. What is a plasma cutter? It's a machine that will cut metal using compressed air and electricity. It's amazing. Very small, very portable. You can take it anywhere. This one will run off 110 electric or 220. You can switch by just changing the end of the plug here. And it's perfect for jobs like this, where you've got to make a contoured cut, you know, intricate curves and that sort of thing. So, look, our ground clamp here, eye protection. This isn't quite as bright as welding, so if you were to look at it, you're not going to instantly feel like you have sand in your eyes, but you still should wear glasses with some shade on them. So if you just want to come over here. Breaker. We have power again. Let's cut some more. Help if I turn the machine back on. Alright, now notice I didn't cut right on the line. That leaves me a little wiggle room to go in there and grind it and make sure this fits perfectly. Awesome part about plasma cutting, and if this was a flat piece, I could demonstrate this a little better, is that there's very little slag after you cut, and the slag that is present you can knock off with a hammer and a chisel. See that slag right there? Got my piece rough cut out. Now it's time to finish the edges. And this is where you're fine-tuning this fitment up against the tube you're intersecting with. So on large flat sections I'll use the bench grinder. That'll take a lot of material off quickly, which is great. In the hard to reach spots or deep cuts like this, I'll usually use a carbide bit or something similar like that to grind. And the key is to just take a little bit off at a time, because you can very easily take too much off. Next thing you know, you've got large gaps, and you don't want to be ending up with a piece that doesn't fit well and has large gaps around it, because those are tough to weld, especially if you're TIG welding. And when you get real close to being done, deburr the edges. Okay. And then take Scotch-Brite and clean the inside and the outside of the tube off. First, that removes all your pen marks. your Sharpie marks. And second, it cleans the tube and gets it ready for welding. This was a piece that was cut off of a mandrel bend. The inside of that mandrel bend is coated in oil, so you always want to go back and clean it. I usually do first with some acetone or non-chlorinated brake cleaner, but then I'll go back and hit it with Scotch-Brite as well. So now that piece is ready for fit. So what you're not seeing is me walking back and forth probably 50 times, grinding a little bit and test fitting, a little bit more and test fitting until I get this to fit perfect. I don't want to show you that. That'll take all day. So we're now going to go over there and I'll show you how well this piece fits and the next step in the process. Alright, let's check our fitment one last time. Oh yeah, we nailed it. So if you look, there's almost no gap around this entire piece here. And then this is the sleeve for the V-band clamp. What I'm going to do now is put my digital angle finder on it and make sure that my angle here is the same as the angle of the flange of the other wastegate on the other header. And it looks like, yep, we're good. The other thing I'm going to do, which you didn't see earlier, is I've got this magnet taped to a ruler, and I'm using that to measure both my height and my distance from the side of the boat, so that I know where this needs to be placed here. So I'm looking at that edge there, touching the ruler, this edge here lining up with a predetermined mark, and that'll ensure that I have these on the same plane, the same height and all that. Next step in the process is I need to mark the port I've got to cut in the tube. So there's my cutout. There's my outside line for this. There's the cutout on the inside. So we'll disassemble this, plasma cut that out, and then grind it, fit this again, and then weld it. Now we're going to remove the turbo off the header, disassemble the tube, and modify the tube. And we've got V-band clamps everywhere. Right about now you're saying, wow, those headers are the only thing supporting the turbo, and when the headers get hot and start glowing red, they're going to move about and the weight of the turbo is going to make the header bend, and you're right, it would. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie these together, and then I'm going to tie them down to the back of the engine to prevent that from happening. Probably won't be a video about that. You can use your imagination until the end when you see it. Okay. Turbo off. Alright. Now, okay. Let's plasma cut that hole out. So the goal is for that to fit together nice and snug, weld it, and then go back in there with a grinder and hand port that until there's no sharp edges and it's nice and smooth, which promotes exhaust flow into the wastegate. And again, keeps me from killing myself because I don't want a lot of boost right away. I know, I'm a wuss, but I've never driven it before. The V-band on the bottom of the wastegate, it's got two pieces. That spacer. This is the adapter that welds to the tube, and you'll see there's a pin right there that locates the thing. Like that. So you have to be careful that you orientate this exactly the way you want it. Otherwise, if you just weld it on there without really looking at it, when you go to install the wastegate later, it could be crooked. Okay, so this is looking down the barrel, and you can see I only rough cut the hole. Once it's finished welded, I'll go back in there and hand port it. As you can see, fit up of these tubes is perfect. Okay, here's the moment of truth. Do they match? Now the exhaust tips I'm going to change out. I'm not just going to leave them straight like that. They look like they're at the same angle. I think we've done a pretty good job of making non-symmetrical turbos look fairly symmetrical. What do you think? Well, we are humming right along here. Exhaust is close to being done, and I am really happy with the way the tips came out. My buddy Jacob Davis came over. This is his design. He did most of the cutting. I welded it, but that's his baby right there. And it came out sick. We've still got not a lot of time left before SEMA, but we're making big progress. The turbos are braced now. Headers are essentially done. We're going to start working on the cold side, and this is something I've kind of been not talking about until now, but we're going to run the charge tube right through the intake manifold, and it's going to come out right there and into the intercooler. And then that other charge tube will follow the same basic line down there to the front of the intercooler. It's going to be awesome. Lots left to do, but I think we'll make it in time for SEMA. Ooh, one more thing I want to show you. Upcoming episode, let's go to the other side of the garage. You guys saw the 67 C10 I just picked up. It's already in pieces, blown it apart. Getting ready for something big to happen. Engine compartment, empty. But looky what we have here. What could it be? What could it be? Yes, of course it's an LS, because I set the truck up for an LS years ago. But it's a very special LS. In fact, this is an LT4 Corvette engine, supercharged. 650 freaking ponies. And you will get to see this go into that truck real soon. Cannot wait. Just got to get a trans and a few more accessories here at the shop, and we can start working on this thing. So, get stoked, because I am. This C10 is going to be rolling real soon. And I'll see you next time on Finnegan's Garage.